Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today we have my Dendrobium green lantern. This orchid has been in my collection for at least 5 years, and ever since it started blooming for the very first time, I believe 4 years ago, every year this orchid has been a reliable bloomer. One of the main characteristics of this orchid is that it has a little bit of black hair along its canes. Not every Dendrobium orchids would have this, but this particular one has that fuzzy hair along the cane, which I find pretty interesting. This orchid currently is in a semi-hydro setup, which you'll see later in some video clips, and I'll go into a little bit more details during those video segments. This orchid, unlike all my other few Dendrobium orchids in my collection, this one is actually going to be a regular size Dendrobium, meaning it could get pretty long once they get completely grown up or mature. I have, I believe, 6 total Dendrobiums in my collection, and at least 4 of them are miniature mid-size Dendrobiums, and this one is one of the ones that would get larger as they become of age. I typically go for mid to miniature or medium size orchids because I just feel regular size orchids, even regular size cattleyas, would take up too much space, and I tend to prefer smaller orchids because that way I get to have a little bit more. Okay, so this orchid is not fragrant, unfortunately, but its other characteristics definitely make up for that. Like I said, the darker hair along the canes, and then also just the way that the flower look. It's that creamy white background with green veins, and then the lip itself is red or orangish red, so that gives enough contrast for me to feel this orchid's bloom is interesting. I usually give this orchid 1/4 cup of water, and this year I actually also added a few slow release fertilizer granules, so maybe like 10 of them on top of the media, and as I water, the water will go through those slow release fertilizer to hopefully over time bring additional nutrients feed into the media. Coming up, we're going to see a short video clip of this orchid's blooming video from previous bloom cycle, and the reason for that is during the bloom cycle of this orchid, I had to go away on a business trip, and when I came back, the flowers were pretty much done. It was very, it was on its way out. So I decided to take a video clip from its previous bloom cycle to really show you how this orchid's flower would look like at its prime, at its peak. And you can see it's very extended, and it's that creamy white background with the green veins that makes it a really big contrast, along with the red lip, of course. And at the time, it was growing a very long new cane, and it was becoming a little bit top heavy, so I decided to use a stick to stake it up so that way it won't topple over. And after this particular blooming cycle, I decided to move it to a windowsill position because it doesn't fit on any of my orchid rack because of its height. And so I originally had it on the very top shelf, which is quite high, and because it may have the tendency to be top heavy if the new cane continued to grow. So in order to avoid potential damage if it falls down, I decided to move it to a lower windowsill position, and that way it would be able to get more natural sunlight on a south-facing windowsill. If you're new to this orchid hobby, you should know Dendrobium orchids just like Cattleya and Vanda orchid types plant would need to receive a little bit more fertilizer and also would need a little bit more light exposure compared to Phalaenopsis orchids in general. But because in my collection, most of my orchids are Phalaenopsis orchid, and for efficiency and for just for making it easy for myself, I also only give this orchid water-soluble fertilizer, and when I do give this orchid feed or plant food, it's quarter strength, so 25% of the recommended dosage, and it seems to be okay. Now, granted, I've seen some people's orchid of this particular type that have so many flowers on just one cane, because they grow them with enough feed, but then also likely they grow them outside. I keep this orchid inside because all my orchids are grown inside, and I really don't want to risk of bringing this orchid to grow it outside for some time, for some months, and then bring it back in when it's cold, because I'm just afraid that I'm going to bring an outdoor pest or disease, viruses from outside into my sunroom. So this orchid has always been indoors, and I know if I grow it outside, it will do much better than what you see here. But you know, it just all depends on whether I want to take that risk, and I don't think I'm ready yet. And as you can see here, I drill some holes on the side, and at the bottom there are also drainage. This is something I changed because before it was in semi-hydro, and then I decided that since I'm gonna be using double cup method anyway, you know, with the blue outer cup, I might as well drill drainage holes at the bottom, so that way if I decide to convert it back to semi-hydro, I simply just leave some water at the bottom. And if I don't, I want to soak it and then have a much easier way to drain this orchid. I just, you know, let it drain, let the water drip through the drainage holes at the bottom. So this is something that I did, and I can't remember when, but you know, it went from semi-hydro setup to a traditional setup, but with double cup. Now here, this orchid, after the blooms had, you know, faded, it started to put out 2 new Keikis, and I plan to leave these Keikis on the mother plant for as long as I can, because, you know, unless the roots are, you know, long enough and have enough roots, I don't think they'll have a chance of surviving. So I plan to leave them on, and if they are big enough and if I ever want to remove them and pot them up separately, I would definitely keep you posted and make a video to share with you what they look like in the future. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!